Well, it's fair to say the concussion saga down at Geelong has taken the footy world by storm, and it does raise significant questions around Steve Hocking, who is the CEO of Geelong and the now chairman of the AFL in Craig Drummond, and their immediate futures. Now, a short time ago, before we came on air, we had the opportunity to speak to Adriana Orezkov. She's the managing director of OSE Advisory. Now, OSE is an Australian financial advisory and insurance firm. We was fortunate enough to chat to Adriana. I just want to play you a couple of grabs of what she had to say. We're just a bit pressed for time this afternoon. She spoke about the waiver and the fact that it can't contract out of work health and safety rules.
You can't contract out of work health and safety rules, even if something like this was done, in which in this case it appears to be the case. It's unenforceable, and it isn't can they take something away from me? It's what have I got in place that nobody can take away from me?
I also then put the question to her whether or not it is most important that individuals take out their own insurance rather than relying on the competition, as in the AFL or the clubs, to actually cover them.
Yes, I do believe that. And I also think that when a player is drafted, conversations are happening in rooms, contracts are being negotiated, you know, there's football advice, there's legal advice, there's management advice, but there's no one in the room doing insurance advice. And I think that needs to change, and it needs to change fast.
So that's an interesting perspective as well, that players need to have a representative when it comes to their contract, to have a representative around insurance as well. So what is her advice to players listening this afternoon?
My advice to every player that's listening to this is the younger you are, the less injuries you have. That is the time when you should be acting to get yourself protected as soon as possible.
So Adriana was the one that assisted Jake Kolodjasny in lieu of his manager being present when this waiver was signed back in 2024. She says how important it is for players to have their own insurance, but that still doesn't obfuscate Geelong of having its role played in insurance as well, and having responsibility for Jake Kolodjasny, who is ultimately an employee of the Geelong Football Club.
Yeah, interesting comment, and obviously, you know, it feels like that is the way that it might get in the future, that you do just have to, when you sign your contract, you have your manager there, and you might have your financial advisor there, but then you probably need your insurance person there as well. So it looks like that will be the way that we go moving down the track. I think for me with this whole thing, the obvious thing for me is just the fact that the waiver wasn't, you know, submitted to the AFL and the AFL Players Association. That is the biggest issue here. So Laura, once this waiver was signed by the board and the president, obviously, in Drummond down at Geelong, would the board necessarily have known whether that was then lodged with the AFL? Because that would have then just gone back to the admin, Steve Hocking and his admin, to then lodge it with those parties. Would the board have known that it wasn't lodged, do you think?
If Steve Hocking if they made a decision not to lodge it, then I don't think they would have
had to let the board know or not?
I don't think so. I don't even know if it was a conversation down there.
So the board's belief could have been that, yes, we've ticked off this waiver. And
or they didn't think it was necessary to lodge it. So this is the thing. It just wasn't done.
Right.
So if they thought there was a problem with it not being done, or they thought there was a risk of being caught, and all this is, as you mentioned, Shorey, in the ad break, has come out because they've been caught.
So once Drummond was made the chairman of the AFL,
that means someone at the AFL knew about it.
But did he necessarily pass that information on to Andrew Dillon?
Well, Andrew Dillon said he didn't know about it until Tuesday this week.
Is that just an oversight by Drummond, or did he just forget about it?
I don't know if anyone's acted maliciously throughout this, but they've made a conscious decision. That doesn't mean it's malicious not to inform the AFL about this. And when Craig Drummond's gone,
issue, isn't it?
And this is for me, the thing is the statement from Craig Drummond that came out yesterday, and the right down at the bottom of it, because we're speaking about, you know, his future at the AFL and potential sanctions against individuals in their job positions. He says, "I have not and will not be involved in any deliberation in relation to this matter and its assessment under the AFL rules and regulations." So I read that and thought, you're just saying, I'm not going to engage on this. I don't understand how you can say that. They're going to do an investigation.
But he can take a step back. Andrew Newbold did when the Hawthorn races.
I have not and will not be involved in any deliberation in relation to this matter and its assessment. We're not saying deliberate, speculate, but I don't know how you can remove yourself and say I'm not going to be a part of a process that looks into this.
He might remove himself, just that he cannot give himself any penalty that comes from that. Yeah.
But hopefully he's
See,
not
the commission
saying
can do that
cooperate.
without him. It's like someone having a conflict of interest and saying, I'll pull off, I won't have any vote on that, but the board might have that. But I'm with you. The only thing is here, they kept it secret. They didn't do what the AFL said you got to do with the contract, and then they got caught.
So is
you pay a price.
All right, so let me put this more on what Richo was asking Laura. Is the board responsible for the actions of the executive? So let's say the board at Geelong, this includes Drummond, they tick off this waiver.
Yep.
They assumed that Steve Hocking and his executive are going to do the right things around contracts.
They then go do the admin.
Correct.
Yep.
So the board's ticked off. But then Steve Hocking and his team have not
forwarded
on that change of contract to the AFLPA and AFL. Is the board, therefore, to blame? Because if they're not, then I don't think you can call for Craig Drummond's head.
Well, it depends if they knew or not.
No.
But I don't think they would have.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
This man, you can't say that because he's gone with that knowing that, thinking that it was going to go to the AFL, but never got there.
He's left it to his AFL executive. He's ticked off on the waiver saying, actually, this waiver might be a good idea.
So he didn't know that wasn't going to be forwarded to the AFL.
No, because that's the job of Steve Hocking.
Well, he should have covered his backside from that from board situation
so the board should have followed up and made sure.
No doubt. No, if that's something so new as that, Shane, and something that's out of the...
You can see how it might have happened, though.
Yeah,
okay, I'll give you that. Well, that means Steve Hocking's gone. You would think. And if Drummond did know and just said, I'm going along, we're not going to send this to the AFL... That's what's going to have to be answered very quick. And if he is, he has to resign straight away.
So yesterday on K-Rock down in Geelong, Steve Hocking appeared after Andrew Dillon had done the radio rounds and it had appeared here on 3RW. Steve Hocking was asked by K-Rock presenter Stephen King with relation to how he had weathered the storm this week since the news had come out, since Shay Clark's reporting, whether or not he had any regrets about how he had handled this story and the news of it coming out into the public. Here's what Steve Hocking had to say on K-Rock.
As a leader, it's really important to just take ownership and, just, lead through that. It's not easy to do, but I wouldn't change too much. I think, importantly, we're a really good football club. I know that there's people out there that are saying that, culturally, we're maybe not as strong as what we have been. We do so much right, and I think that, occasionally there might be 1 or 2% that you don't get right, and in this case, that will be proven, I would suggest.
I would suggest he needed to come out earlier.
I would suggest that saying it was a misstep
wasn't strong enough.
No, not at all.
I think that he needed to come out when that story came out.
It's worse than salary cap stuff. This has got
and
some...
it's not the 1
It's got
or
some
2%
moral
that you get
thing
wrong.
apart about it. Or moral
It's minimising it to say it's the 1 or 2% you get wrong.
G'day, Paul.
Good afternoon, viewers and listeners. Can I ask a valid point? So my understanding is the player has signed a waiver because he loves to play the game that he wants to play. And as an example, I was blessed to be a commercial pearl diver out of the Kimberley in pearling fields, and every year we had to do full medical x-rays, lungs, eyes, ear, etc. And then it was our decision to sign a live contract if we wanted to go and blow bubbles underwater and pick up pearl shell per se.
Yep.
That makes sense.
So the argument against that, Paul, for Jake Kolodjasny is that Geelong, as his employer, cannot obfuscate its responsibility as the employer, as the football club. They cannot forego their responsibility for Jake Kolodjasny.
Yeah.
That if they didn't believe he was safe to play, he should not be playing, full stop.
Yeah, and I think, and what's been proven over the last few days, listening to so many ex-players, and even Bevo said it as well, and some of the coaches, is that most players just love playing and they want to play, and they would sign the waiver. But I think you got to take that responsibility off the player.
It was as good as I say. And let me tell you, both will acquit themselves well in finals on a dry track at the MCG. It had everything. It was sensational. Richo, it's how our game should be.
Oh, absolutely. Both teams scoring 100 points. It actually blew Tony Leonard's theory out the window. They first to 100 normally wins because Freo got to 100 and then got rolled. Look, Melbourne just don't go away. They just come at you. They attack. They're exciting to watch. Even if you don't like Melbourne and you're an opposition supporter, you want to watch them play. They're never out of a game the way they're moving the football. They're exciting. They're playing with such enthusiasm. I think Stephen King has to be Coach of the Year. When you have a look at, he took over a team that had just lost All-Australian defender in Stephen May. Christian Petrarca, one of the great midfielders of the last 10, 12 years, and Clayton Oliver, just the contested ball beast. You take that out of the guts of their team, they leave, and then they do what they've done under Stephen King. It's been phenomenal.
Well, we've spent time saying it should be Justin Longmuir just purely off, Freo's home and away season, but
you've got to look at the expectation.
He hasn't had to shift a team, and I think it's the culture of the team, because a lot of, much has been said about Stephen May, Christian Petrarca and Clayton Oliver in terms of the issues surrounding them and how that contributed to the culture at the Melbourne Football Club.
But they had been premiership players.
They had been premiership players, but it wasn't just a matter of how are we performing on the field. There was a dip there in terms of course, the confidence and the culture. So he's done a great job at prying that back in. And you would have to think, I would agree at the moment.
You know how I judge
Stephen King? Do you agree about Stephen King? Coach,
I would think so, because I think the Longmuir had a bit more to work with and had a knowledge of it. This has been incredible.
I look at a team and I go, how many players have improved under the new coach? Right, so I look at yesterday's team. Now, these are the guys I think are playing their best footy that they've ever played. Just about. I think Cozzy Pickett is, Sparrow is, Langford is, Petty is, Sharp is, Tolstrup is, Laurie is, Fitzgerald drafted mid-year, of course he is, Disco Turner, Chandler. Van Roy and Jefferson, all those guys are playing the best footy of their career. Then you got Gawn, Fritsch, Langdon, Lever and Steele.
They're loving it. They're loving it.
They're just playing how they always have, right? They haven't dropped off. There's a couple of question marks. Maybe his wins are having his best ever year. I think he's going pretty well.
He had a few injuries. He had an injury earlier.
Jath, he's been in and out and played probably better at Hawthorn.
Got something to offer.
Rivers was out of the team but has come back in, is playing well now. And Salem and Bowie are back in after being injured. But you can say 17 of their team
totally agree.
Are playing as good or better than they ever have.
133693 is Stephen King Coach of the Year. 133693. If not Stephen King, who is? I then want to raise the bar and say, is Melbourne now a genuine premiership contender? We had floated this during the year. Are they now a genuine premiership contender? So I'll put this to you. Fremantle still out in front. Swans in second. Would you have Melbourne ahead of Hawthorn?
Yep.
Yeah,
after this round of footy,
on a par with at the moment.
The only thing I'd put
Hawthorn's
Melbourne ahead of Adelaide.
I'd put an asterisk here to say you got to get there and have won a final. Hawthorn have done that the last few years.
Still a lot of finals experience in that Melbourne
but a few years off in between.
Team.
They don't seem like the occasion gets them, especially at the MCG. But look, I don't
lost one game there this year.
I don't live on that. I don't live on that thing about Freo come over experience the MC. I think Lee Matthews picked up a beautiful thing. He said yesterday, why didn't they experiment to say come over like 2 days before or a day before, like the normal grand final build up? Because I think the outside thing is a lot more important than going to play on the MCG. It's a bloody ground, all right? You play on grass every week. You do what you got to do. No, hold on. The repercussions are different. That's why you got to have everything organised off field in the grand final
like a dress rehearsal.
No doubt, and I reckon it was a great pickup by Lee.
You wouldn't
about
rest
it.
Alex Pearce then if it's a dress rehearsal.
See that was, and the coaches come out and said they probably made a mistake. I don't mind. I don't think Freo lost anything on that. And they wouldn't be thinking they can't get it done.
I think it means something. I think...
Not at the back of the mind.
Not winning at the G.
Well, they don't play there again. Yeah, so they roll up grand final day if they get there.
That's why you qualify with 3 spots to get there, that you have your 2 home finals, and that's what they've done.
But they don't have an opportunity to play there again now until they make the grand final if they win their 2. Now, you can't
So one person missed out, and I agree, he could have made it for you.
It would have felt better yesterday if you're walking off through all those Melbourne members who are disappointed that they've lost and you've just beaten Melbourne, who've only lost 1 game there all year.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
I think you give a little bit
So you're saying the win of just walking off with the win, you won by 2 or 3 points against Melbourne. Melbourne are probably thinking then, we can get them. We can get them. So it was a variation.
I think singing the song at the MCG, flying home and then thinking the next time we come back, the last time we had a great win there against a good Melbourne team, I think that meant something.
Singing the song.
But Richo, are you less confident in Fremantle now to be the Premiers?
I'm confident that Fremantle...
Has it changed, though? Because you're talking about winning at the G.
I've been confident that they would make the grand final because I think they're just about unbeatable at Optus Stadium. From what I've seen this year, they haven't lost there. They're the only team that hasn't lost at home all year. I think they'll get to the grand final. I think grand final day without, a biased home crowd there, I think it might mean something,
Yeah, I'm a bit over that. If you can't go
I'd back Brisbane over Freo at the MCG.
But I back Brisbane before them anyway. because you know why that. But that's against your argument because 3 times they've been best of the best in the grand final.
Would have been nice to have had a win there yesterday. That's all I'm saying.
I don't agree with that.
133693. Does your perception?
Sure, he thinks losing sets you up.
No, if you saw the game live, you would see that both of these sides were well equipped to do a good effort in finals time. And grand finals are grand finals. There's no certainty them winning the premiership.
Melbourne kicked the last 3 or 4 goals to lose the game.
Well, there you go. You learn from that, Richo.